Hi.
Hello.
Happy Monday.
Monday. We're on Mondays now.
We're getting our days straight.
No, it feels like the weekend, and this is extended weekend.
Why not?
Because we're doing Wolf Mountain.
Yeah.
Welcome to Wolf Mountain on Mondays now. We were on Sundays.
Mixing it up.
Yeah.
We never know what we're going to do.
You never know. For those of you new, welcome to Wolf Mountain. We are your online Christ-based spiritual alternative spiritual community. I still have not come up with that.
Something like that.
We call ourselves something different every week. We're Wolf Mountain. It doesn't matter what we are. This is what we are. We're this thing. This
Who needs
ridiculousness.
labels?
Who needs labels? Welcome. For those of you who are new, this is Melanie, our resident enneagram coach. I am Sid from 7 to 7:30ish.
But I think you're Sid all the time.
Am I? What did I say?
You said, I'm Sid from 7 to 7:30.
Oh. Thanks for derailing me.
Sorry.
From 7 to 7:30, Smart Alec here does enneagram coaching, and from 7:30 to 8, I do some teaching. So glad to have you. We also encourage comments and questions and interaction. We'll be monitoring your comments. Sometimes we drag them up on the screen, so it's all free range. You comment, everyone's going to see.
It's all fair game.
And what else? Tonight, we will be giving away a special prize for the most thought-provoking comment or question, which is free tiny Hug a Wolf kit.
Look how cute.
Isn't that awesome? We saw those and we're like, our people need those.
Oh.
It's all about cute.
Not that we advocate hugging actual wolves.
If you can try, I would.
Let us know. Report back.
Yeah, let us know how that goes. I would like to. They're actually really shy. Wolves are. They don't like
really
people.
want hugged.
They are terrible guard dogs. They will run away from you. And we do favorite thing ever of the week every episode. And my favorite thing ever of the week, I'm going to start first.
You go. You do it.
Men first. It's about time.
That's how it should
We had some equality around here. Men should be first.
It's about time.
You women
for
start
some men's rights.
opening doors for us. So then in like 100 years, we'll be mad about it. So that is degrading. My favorite thing ever of the week is motorcycles, specifically my Street Fighter. People know me, know I love my motorcycles. I have a specific bike that I just love so much that feels like Ducati made it for me in Italy and stamped my name on it. Took my measurements and put everything into it that I would love, and then manufactured it and sold it to me. It's beautiful. And I forgot how amazing it was. And I went and rode it yesterday in the perfect riding weather. And I just remember how much I love that bike. It is so good. If you want to see a gratuitous video of it, it's on.
Which of course you do.
Of course you do. Why would you not want to see? I just assume everybody wants to see my whole vehicle collection. Share the love with me so you can see it on my Facebook page or my Instagram page. And what's your favorite thing every week?
Well, those of you that know me know I'm quite fond of spiders, and apologies to people who are not, but I dare you, even if you're not, I dare you to dislike this spider. So can we play it?
We will play the video.
Okay, you're going to love it.
I saw a spider.
You did?
Yeah, it was over there.
Are you sure?
Yeah, right there. It was big.
Well, did it say anything to you?
I said, what are you doing here? And it said, what are you doing here? And it was so scary.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure that it was a giant.
Okay, I didn't see anybody over there.
I saw it.
Was it over there by the mirror?
It was this big or
B,
this
hey,
big.
B.
What?
You said you saw it right over by that mirror?
Yeah.
Do you think maybe you just saw yourself again?
No.
That's your favorite thing every week.
Yes. Seriously, isn't that so flippin' adorable? How cute. And like, I mean, those type of spiders, they're just so
You
tiny.
must have like a major zoom lens to be able to film that thing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, B is very cute. And apparently B is afraid of spiders, poor thing.
I think the story behind that woman is she had arachnophobia and then got spiders as pets to get over arachnophobia, and then started a TikTok channel, and it just blew up.
And good for her.
Yeah,
way to
way
face
to
her
overcome
fears.
fear and have it
That's
like turn into something
awesome.
huge for her. So, all right. Well,
So
that was our
cute.
awkward opening. It's pretty like clunky today on my end. I feel a little awkward. So let's get the ball rolling with you, and maybe we'll smooth out.
Okay. 'cause
What do you got
I
for
never
us
bring
today?
the awkward.
You never bring the awkward?
No.
You're all about the awkward.
Just kidding.
Okay, what do you got for us today?
Okay, so today I was just going to share my personal favorite things about each Enneagram type. And feel free to weigh in with your
Oh, wait.
particular
Pop
favorite
comments
things.
on here.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so we can just have a discussion about, because it just isn't necessarily like the same for every person what their favorite feature is.
So these are your favorite things about each Enneagram type
Yes.
as an Enneagram coach.
Yes, from my
Professional
personal
Enneagram coach.
type 9 Enneagram lens, these are my favorite things about each type as far as the people I know of those types. So, does that make sense?
That does make sense.
Okay.
All right. Favorite thing. Melanie's favorite thing about each Enneagram type. Starting
Yes.
with, are we starting up the list from 1 to 9 or backwards?
I'm just going to start at 1 because that's how I did it in my head. So I don't want to mess it up.
All right.
So my favorite things about ones are their attention to detail and their strong moral compass. I love that I know it's going to be done right if it's a one that's working for me. I have a type 1 for an accountant, and I love that. Like every detail is going to be checked and double checked, and it is going to be right. And if it's an error of a few cents, he is just going to keep working on it to figure out why this 18 cents. And I love that attention to
So
detail.
ones make good accountants.
They sure do. Other numbers can be great accounts too, but ones are really temperamentally suited to.
If you want
To
someone
being
who's going to pay
precise.
attention to details, hire a 1.
Yes.
I like it.
Yes. So, do you have a favorite thing about ones?
Favorite thing about ones. I don't know the 1 that well. I don't have any 1s in my life, do I?
Yeah.
Who?
My sister.
Oh, that's right. Your sister's one. Yes, I like their attention to detail for sure. If you want something done right, you get somebody. I always say no one likes a perfectionist until you want something done right, which I have been called a perfectionist.
Yes, you share a lot.
Hey, Dave. I do.
Yes.
I like it. All right.
Yeah.
Dave, what's your Enneagram number? Do you know? Throw
Which Dave
your
do you have?
Enneagram number up
Oh,
there.
okay.
If you know what it is, let us know. Then we will judge you silently,
But kindly.
but kindly. All right.
Hi, Rachel.
Hey, Rachel. Moving on to 2.
Moving on to type 2, the helper. And so many lovely things about 2s, but I think my favorite thing is how they make you feel so known and appreciated. Like 2s are so other focused. You just know they see you, that they care what will make you happy and what you want and what you think. I just love how invested in you 2s are. So thank you, 2s.
They do.
Yeah, they love well.
Yes, that's my favorite thing about my 2 people is they make you feel thought about and cared about.
Yes. It's hard to measure up to how loving 2s are.
I know. Stop it, 2s. You're making us look
Stop
bad.
making that awesome. No,
I
don't
am
stop.
definitely
I love
not
it.
a 2, and Melanie's definitely not a 2. We're the least healthy
No.
people ever. If we had kids, which we don't, they'd be like,
We can help.
Make your
We
own
just-
foods
it's
in the
not so
kitchen, kid.
It's not so first to nature for us. It's like
definitely not.
second, third, fourth nature.
If I think about it, I am. But Dave wants to know, how do you find out your Enneagram number? How does one find out their Enneagram number, Dave?
Well, couple ways, Dave. You can either read a book about it and see what resonates with you, which I would recommend. There's also quite a few pretty helpful tests out there, which could be a starting place. And I will put a link in the comments if you want to take a little test and see what it shows. And take that with a grain of salt, though. I mean, don't land on that unless it really resonates with you. And it's just so helpful for self-awareness.
It is worth doing.
Yes. So I will try to remember after I'm done talking to put that in the comments.
All right.
Okay, moving on to type
Three.
3, are achievers, and it is my favorite thing about 3s is how inspirational they are. I love to watch them set goals and then crush them. I think they're super inspiring. Like one of our type 3 friends this weekend set a goal for herself to run an ultra marathon, and she just did it on Saturday at the I forgot what it was called, but it was a Smith Rock, and it was all trail, tons of elevation gain, like something like 5,800 feet, which is crazy. And she hasn't been running for very long, and to just like, I need to run 31 miles, and then just do it. And afterwards, she's like, I didn't die, and I think I will do that again. And because she set that goal, I have no doubt she will do it again.
Yeah.
So inspiring.
Yeah, that's what I love about 3s. They get stuff done. I have a 3-wing, but I only have the vanity 3-wing part. I don't have.
You can get stuff done, though. I've seen it happen.
I don't know why I get stuff done is if it's a competition. I'm competing because I'm very competitive. If no one's figured that out by now. If I have to make it a competition, and then I can get it done. Even if it's with myself, but usually with the clock. If it's the clock involved, I don't know why. It's gonna
win.
Yeah. Every job I do, it turns into a game.
That's a good strategy.
Yes, 3s. Hire 3s if you want to get stuff done.
Yeah. But hire 1s if you want it to be accurate.
Right. Hire 3s if you want it to look really good.
And hire 2s if you just need lots of help.
That's right.
And affirmation.
Yeah.
And then moving on to type 4s. Of course, the best type.
The best type.
So my favorite thing about 4s is how they express themselves. So the depth of emotions of 4s and the way that they can express creativity. I just think that they do the very best about capturing the essence of the human condition, spirituality through art and music and poetry and literature. I mean, of course, it's not only 4s that have a corner on the arts, but 4s have this like unique ability to tap into the depths. And I sometimes think that I cannot fully feel my emotions without having words put to it sometimes, but sometimes listening to something, seeing something, reading something that does put a language or an image or a sound to what I feel lets me really feel it. You guys know what I mean? So 4s make that possible. So
we're here for you.
Thank you, 4s. Any thoughts about your own type?
My own type?
What's your favorite thing about being a 4?
My favorite thing about being a 4 is understanding other 4s.
Somebody has to.
No, I think all my 4 friends are just super creative, and so, but a lot of them suffer emotionally.
I wanted to, thank 4s for they pay a high price for what they give us. They pay a lot.
And so, a lot of the people I'm inspired by are 4s, obviously, because they just carry the depth and weight of the human experience and that kind of camaraderie and feeling like there's always something missing. And there's something deeper that you need to find. And so when you're around a bunch of people like that, it just feels like, yeah, you get it.
Yeah. And I think it's like that search for that missing piece that sometimes brings out that beautiful art because they're always searching. Yeah.
I mean, art expressed through pain is relatable. I mean, sometimes I think the artist has to manifest emotion so other people can look at it and relate to it. And like really good art, it's honest like that.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't taught to be very honest with their emotions or be scared of being honest with their emotions, but all real good art, I think, is offensive to people in some way or fashion or form because it's truth. And we're not taught to express truth like that usually. So,
and some of us, it's just we're not wired for it to come that easily.
Yeah, maybe. All right. That's about me.
Okay.
5s.
And 5. So my favorite 5 thing is their
what is the 5?
The 5, yes. So the 5 is the investigator. Or the observer.
The expert.
Yes. And my favorite thing about the 5s is the no drama factor. Like they're in their heads, which can be a challenge for them and others, but they don't really create drama. They don't like it. It's like without pretense, and And I like those kind of relationships. They're just very straightforward. They'll tell you what they think. They'll tell you how it is. They're not going to be unkind about it, but they're also going to be really honest. And we need that. And they're pretty good about seeing both sides of an issue and just telling it like it is. And we need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that what I like about fives is just their confidence. They like, almost to a fault sometimes, but they're just confident in what they know because they want to be experts. So they've researched.
And they put the homework in too.
In.
They do the work.
They want to, yeah, they want to know what they know, and I appreciate that. So when you want to answer about, to a question that has something to do with something technically, specifically, or I don't know what the right word is, but fives are the guys I go to. Researchers,
yeah, especially if you can hit their area of interest, then you will find out more than you ever wanted to know.
That's right. Call it male pattern lecturing.
Or female.
Or female.
The case
Females, I don't really know. I haven't really ran into too many females that like do the guy thing where they just start telling you all about their hobby in great detail and not realize that you're completely bored with it.
Does that mean that women are just more socially aware?
I think they're just more emotionally aware.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Depends. We'll
Dave says he is mostly 8, 4, and a medium height 2. I would have picked you. I would have pegged you as a 4.
I would guess a 4, yeah. Dave. You've got, you have an artist's soul.
The chosen people.
Yes, yeah. We love 4s.
I might be biased. That's cool. Well, good luck out there.
And I'm not surprised that you're high on the 2 too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where were we? So that takes us to
6.
type 6, the loyalist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my favorite thing about the 6 is that they are humble. They don't take themselves too seriously. They tend to be funny in a low-key way. And I like that. And obviously their loyalty, what they're named for, that it takes them a minute to trust you, but when you're in, you're in. So I love that. Any thoughts on 6?
Any thoughts about 6 is they're kind of team players.
They are. They are about the community.
They like to organize the community, and they know the rules. Whether it's to break them or to follow them.
Right, it depends. Yeah. And I kind of like that they plan for things to go wrong because somebody should.
Hey.
Hi, Amanda.
Dave feels so validated. We're here to validate everybody, Dave. Your type is valid. You're a valid human being.
Yes, indeed.
Actually, you should, Dave. You should actually investigate the enneagram. I think it helped to understand yourself and people around you. It's really great.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Obviously. Okay, on to 7.
Okay, 7's the enthusiast, and of course, I love how spontaneous 7's are. They're so fun to have as friends. Like, you can suggest anything, and before you even get to like the punchline, like, do you want to? It's yes. Like, whatever the rest of that sentence was, the answer is yes, and let's go now. I love that they're just so willing to do whatever, change it up, have an adventure.
Party people.
They're so much fun, and they're super fun to travel with. One of my favorite 7 memories is my friend that I traveled to Europe with a few years ago, and we were in Barcelona, and there was a bachelor party, and there were all of these guys dancing, and it was 3 girls. My 7th friend was the only one who got talked into being pulled into dancing with this group of bachelor party boys, and the other 2 of us, type 9s, were standing there saying, "No, you go ahead." We'll cheer.
That's funny.
It's very 7, so life of the party.
I like 7s because I'm a pretty melancholy person, and they're hardly ever melancholy, and so they kind of balance the equation out and always get me into doing stuff that I wouldn't normally do. Yes,
like emotional yin and yang.
So only 7 people seem to like to tickle me.
Because they just can't stand seeing somebody being like a bummer.
I don't like it. Stop doing that, 7s.
They cannot help it.
Get into my personal space.
To tickle. So funny.
All right, so that leads us on to the 8.
And then Okay, type 8, the
The
challenger.
challenger. Dun, dun, dun.
And I love 8s because of that, because they are a challenge. Even more than with my 7 friends, with my 8 friends, I never know what kind of hijinks are about to ensue. Like, who is about to get told off? What law is about to get broken?
Don't apply. The laws don't apply.
I know.
I feel the same way.
It's so because they have so much less of a filter. They're so much less inhibited. They're so much bolder. They are in almost every way opposite of my personality. So I am really quite in awe of 8s, and learning about the inner world of the 8s has made me love them even more, to realize how hard they wrestle with that and controlling that, and how sensitive they actually are inside. So I'm on to you, 8s.
You are like a fig Newton, all
You're
crispy
soft
on the
and
outside,
squishy
soft
in
and
the
squishy in the
middle,
middle.
crusty on the outside. I know what's really in there.
Dave says he's surprised he's high on the 8s. I score really high on the 8s too, but I'm not an 8. But it's a subtype, right? Or a, what do you call it?
Your subtype, being intimate, causes you to be more aggressive,
Right.
which is an 8 trait, is that aggression.
A lot of people think I am an 8 because I'm aggressive.
Yes,
but it's
so you're definitely a
definitely a
4.
Yeah, I'm an aggressive.
Yes. Yeah, 8s are the most forceful type.
Yes. What I like about 8s is that I actually admire that they just think they're always right, even though it's also something that drives me crazy because I just can't see logic. But that conviction of just being like, nope, I'm right, and just go, that's very useful sometimes. And then also that they can just forget things. Like, they're not thinking about the conversation you had yesterday.
They will let it go. They'll be mad, and then
they
they'll
can
let it
just let it
go,
go.
and that's so healthy.
Yeah, which I can do, but not always. And that's pretty admirable, I think, just to let it go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and sing the song.
Yeah. This is not the Disney Channel.
Sorry. Okay, so that takes us to the last type, the
last
type
type.
9, the peacemaker.
And Melanie is the 9.
Yes.
Neil's not figured that out yet.
Yes. So what I like about 9s is that for one, I know where they're coming from generally. And I know that they are as averse to conflict as I am. So they're not going to start a fight. They're not going to provoke anything. They're not going to push any buttons. And so
you're saying is they're not very scary to be around.
They're not scary to be around.
I'm high conflict, so that's
9s.
you can tell where that's a problem between us. I'm a high conflict person. I cause conflict just for the energy.
Yeah, I do notice in being around other 9s that we both have to work harder than normal to like have a conversation or be in a relationship, because 9s, because we're so go with the flow and so low key, we tend to kind of rely on the other more forceful types or the bigger personalities to kind of carry the conversation and to kind of point us in certain directions. So 2 9s have to pull themselves up more than they are comfortable doing to keep propelling something forward, like a conversation or a relationship.
2 9s going out to dinner. Where do you want to go? I don't care.
I don't know. Where do you want to go?
Let's just go home. Wait a minute. That's things we loved about 9s.
Yes, sorry. I should only say good things, but I do love the 9s, and I do love that 9s are non-judgmental and they can see other points of view, and the world definitely needs more of that.
That's true. That's my favorite thing about 9 is they see all sides, and they can get on the side of either party, and so they're pretty sympathetic to everybody, but they're not very polarized. And it seems like all the 9s I know, they're not very polarized to like one party or another, or one, they're contemplating both sides of an equation, so they can figure out how to be a mediator or have a mediation. And that's really valuable for sure in these polarizing times where everybody's right. Right. We just need,
and you know what? Everybody is a little right.
That's true.
And a little wrong.
Yeah.
Hate to tell you.
Yeah, right. Oh, cool. What else?
Yeah. Well, that was really it. I am 4 minutes early.
4 minutes early. That is awesome.
Oh, Dave wanted you to sing it.
Sing? No, I'm not singing any Frozen songs, Dave. That's your job. I'm not a musician or a singer. I wish I was. I wish I had that gift.
You can sing. You're a good singer.
Can I? Oh, thank you. That sounds a very nine thing to say. Try and make peace with my inner critic.
Yes.
All right, well, that's cool. So those are
my personal favorites.
Melanie's personal
And you
my
all could have
personal
your own
favorite
personal
things about
favorites,
each
too.
personality type. It's easy to point out the things that irritate us, I think, but
there's so many beautiful things, and
Yeah.
I'm just glad for every type because we need each other. The world would be a mess with only 9s or only 4s or only 8s or only anything.
that
we
is
all
true.
make it
And it's good to
work.
know like other people's strengths and even their weaknesses that become a strength in certain
Mhm.
situation.
Totally.
Yeah, especially if you're working with them or trying to do a project or a team. Like if you got somebody like a 9 who just does not want to won't work under conflict, and will shut down, and you're in like a high conflict, scenario.
They're not being set up to succeed.
Yeah, they're gonna fail, and you're gonna torment them, and then things like that. And it's just good to know how people are wired. That not all of us actually think the same way. Or
True. What a revelation.
succeed under the same
What?
conditions. Like
Not everyone's reality is exactly like mine.
what?
How can this be? It's
Anyway,
madness.
all right. Well, that was awesome. Thanks, babe. You guys got
welcome.
any questions, comments there? I gotta get distracted here with our next thing. Okay. Well, that was cool. So we're all done.
Yeah.
Really. All right. Well, now we're gonna roll over into stage 2 of Wolf Mountain and take a 30-second break. And I know I got it this time. I'm gonna grab my notes and we'll be back in 30 minutes. Seconds. Oh, I did it again.
You're so close.
I have this weird thing with minutes and seconds. I almost got it. I'm a failure.
No.
We're back.
Did you miss us?
Did you miss us? Wolf Mountain. Wait, where'd half our people left? I'm offended. I can't do this. I can't.
They'll be
work like
back.
this.
They'll be back.
Welcome to Wolf Mountain Phase 2. For those of you who just tuned in at 7:30, like many people do, to hear my nonsense.
Oh, it mentioned that again.
Oh, yes. And since there wasn't really anybody on for the first few minutes,
You need to reenact.
we are giving away this tonight. We have free prizes if you'll buy our stuff, which we don't have.
No
yet.
purchase necessary.
We have this tiny. We saw this and thought some of our wolves needed it. It's a little Hug a Wolf kit for the person with the most thought-provoking question of the night. Since there, how's that for manipulating you to participate? Kelly, hey Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
Okay, hello. How's everybody? You see, this is driving me crazy. You know what this is right here? You don't
Tell
even-
them.
You don't even want. It's been a hard week in Sid land.
It's a hard knock life.
Tried to kill myself in more ways than once, but as a lot of you know, or are actually wondering why in the heck that I'm spinning lightsabers and staffs online. It's because I'm taking lessons from a stunt person, and
Obviously.
we use lightsabers to swords because it's cool. That's why. But mine is, I got a new one, and I was doing these like learning head catch things, and it like the butt of it hit me in the forehead here. It was like kind of
Head catch? Is that really what it's called?
What's a head catch? I literally caught it with my forehead. Actually, I
Oh,
spun
wow.
it past my forehead, and the hilt of it just sliced my head wide open. It was like a stitches scenario, but it was late at night, and so I just taped it back together and used some magic ointments I have, which you all wish you had.
Thank
but
you,
don't.
essential oils.
And it literally, you can hardly see the scar there, but I still have a tiny little red spot. It's really distracting me because I'm easily distracted. Anyway, that was a rabbit trail, but welcome back. It's good to have you. So I was reading. This is how I read the Bible, you guys. Here's some tips for you. Just don't have to like do time and read the Bible and like, or any text, just to do time. When it comes to like the living word of God, you read it until something stands out to you, and then you investigate that thing. A lot of people read the Bible and they don't really understand what it says. That's why we get a lot of crazy doctrines and ideas and thoughts like women shouldn't speak or teach or they're second-tier citizens. Unbiblical. It's just they don't understand the culture that things were being taught in, and so a lot of things that have been actually taught in the church is actually anti-Christ teaching. It's just misunderstanding of what the Bible says. So one of the ways I scroll through personally, it's like I have to open it up, something stands out to me, I can feel the breath of the Spirit on it, and I dive into it deeper, And so the other day, what's really standing out to me was this verse. And it's funny because what caught my attention was the word pagan in the verse. But there's a verse, I'm just going to sum it up for you because it's boring to watch people read. That says, summarize. Basically, Jesus is saying, look, you guys, when you pray, don't babble like the pagans. You just keep talking and carrying on, thinking that that's going to somehow get God to hear them. But when you pray, go into it says closet, which is a kind of a misinterpretation as well. Go into a private room in the quiet and just talk to God, because he already knows what you want anyway before you ask. It says put your requests before him. And so that's interesting. So I'm like, what is the actual word pagans here? Because that's just what stuck out to me. So I looked up that word, and it actually meant in that he was talking to Jews. The word pagan sometimes was foreigner or sometimes is Gentile. It's really not the word pagan. It's anybody who's not Jewish. It's ethnikos. And so
Pagan.
So that would mean I'm a pagan, you're a pagan, everybody who's not Jewish is pagan. So it's interesting to know the root of the words, because then you start to realize that the Bible had given some liberties in the way it was interpreted, but according to the culture that it was interpreted through. So I always say I research scripture, and God's always better than I thought he was after I researched. But anyway, what really stood out to me there, and I just really felt like, and I've been getting hints of this here and there, like I've been picking this up in the air, that people have this idea, and then it's always been taught, it's like, if you want God to answer you, or you want God to move, or you want God to hear your case, that you have to go pray blood out of turnips and tarry and pray for all you're worth and try to convince God somehow to move on your behalf. And I think that people get that from, there's another verse that says, it's a parable about a woman that Jesus tells his disciples, look, there's this parable about this woman, and she goes before this wicked king, and she keeps coming back to see him over and over and again. And finally she wears him out, and he says, I need to answer this woman's request or she's going to wear me out, basically. Actually, I think the actual definition is she might attack me. And so he said, basically, he's like, why wouldn't God answer you if he loves you, And so people think that, use that verse as this, oh, we need to just keep coming back to God over and over and over and begging him, or we need to do all these things and get the words right, or pray for so long, or play the right music, or perform, basically, to get God to hear us even, and it's just it's so unbiblical. And if you really look at that verse, Jesus is look, and in the time I should explain the thing about the pagans thing, because back in that day, there were a lot of the culture was worshiping some pretty gnarly gods that required some pretty intense sacrifices, which a lot of them had to do with children being sacrificed to them. And they would sacrifice their own children. They would dedicate buildings to those gods by killing their firstborn son and burying it under the foundation, sacrificing their babies on these burning altars to appease these gods. So they would convince them to give them a good harvest, convince them to do all these things, and they would prostitute themselves in the temples to the temple priests. It's really ways for the temple priests to get all the pretty girls. They would do these really disgusting things, trying to convince their gods to be good to them, or else if they didn't appease them, that the God would turn on, their gods would turn on them. And the Israelites kind of came out of that kind of a pagan culture understanding. And I use the word pagan loosely because paganism is a very broad, it's as broad as Christianity. There's many different beliefs, but really pagan means peasant. Like it's a misunderstood word. But, and so the culture that Jesus was talking to had this kind of mindset that, hey, Caitlin, all the way from Australia, folks, that you had to like convince God to be good to you or he would turn on you. And the people that have, or he just wouldn't pay any attention to you, you had to do the right things so God would be up there and be like, okay, I guess that's the right thing. You've spent enough time. I will answer your request because you put in enough time. I guess I will love you now. And it's really a performance mindset. And like, it's really a mindset of believing that you have to do the right thing to receive love. And so in like relationships between people, it's like, and we know people like this, everybody does, that somebody who's a controlling type personality will withhold love from somebody if they're a manipulative, controlling personality, a narcissist will put conditions on their love. They're like, if you do exactly what I want, you will receive favor and love from me. If you don't, I'm going to take it away. It's a punishment thing. So their love is conditional, right? God's not like that at all. And so if we really look at what Jesus is saying, and when I read the Bible, which is, some of it's very hard to read because it's, this mindset, it's all the inspired word of God. Some of it's commentary written by men, but when you read the words of Jesus, you can take those as like truth. And when you can really dissect what he's saying. So he speaks on so many levels of truth. And when he's talking, he says, when you bring your requests before God, so he's like, God expects you to bring requests before him. That's like, a request is asking something from, right? He says he already knows what you need. And so come anyway and ask him for what you want, and there's this understanding today in other spiritual cultures. It's like, you just put your requests into the universe. Your universe is going to do everything it can to fulfill your requests. It's kind of the same thing with God. If the request is good, he's going to do he's commanded the whole universe to orchestrate for your own good, for your success. And so Jesus is saying, come in. And the other profound thing he's saying is like, God's already paying attention to you. He is so observant of you. He already knows every single thing you need. Like, he's watching your life. He's not looking away. He can't look away because he's in everything and you're in him and he's in you. He's everywhere, constantly paying attention to you. And we can't wrap our mind around that because we try to put God in a human concept where we can understand how God works, and we cannot. But so what Jesus is saying, though, is like, God already knows what you need. Like, he's paying that close attention to you. But the other profound thing is he wants a dialogue with you. Like, so he could just be this hands-off personality who's just like not paying attention. Like, good luck out there. But it's like, come to God. You don't have to babble a bunch of words and say the right thing and do the right stuff and act out and put a bunch of energy in and perform for God. Come with requests. He already knows what they are, but he wants to talk to you. So go in a private place where nobody sees you and just ask God what the questions. Put your requests out there.
So Kelly asks, part of that is being willing to receive through the asking, right? Like believing and being grateful for your needs already being met?
Yes.
Good job.
Believing and grateful. Yes, we'll kind of get to that later. I'm going to talk about that a little bit, the grateful aspect, when it really is a form of worship.
Yeah. And
so I think a lot of people go, I used to do this too. Actually, I had a really powerful experience. I was very sick. I had crashed my body, like flattened my hormones, my neurotransmitters. I had chunks of hair falling out. I was just pushed my body so hard physically and was stressed out. I had all these like perfect storm of bad things going on in my life. And I'm an athlete, people. I never run out of energy. Like, I could go 24/7, stay up all night and keep going. But I crashed. I had zero energy. I just was losing my strength. I had enough energy for about 2 hours a day. And I was literally like beside myself with grief that my body was falling apart like this. And I don't get so upset that I like bawl ever. I can never have. But I was one day like praying to God that he would heal me and hear my prayer. And I was literally just on the floor, like sobbing, right? Because I just wasn't getting any better. And probably because like a minute went by and I'm very impatient. But I just like very clear Holy Spirit's voice. She's like, quit. She's like, quit crying. What she said is, am I Baal that you should cry out to me like Baal? And it sounded kind of like a little blunt. And I was kind of shocked that God would talk to me that way in a moment like that. And I'm like, and she's like, you don't have to cry out to me like Baal. And so who Baal is in the Old Testament was one of those pagan gods I talked about. I'm using the word pagan because that's the word they used back then. It was a pagan god that you had to sacrifice children to, all these terrible things. And Baal's followers would there's a story about one of God's prophets and Baal's followers that kind of went head to head as kind of like, we'll see who the real God is. Whoever lights this altar on fire, that's the God we'll serve. And so it was like the showdown. And so the prophets of Baal, they just started dancing and cutting themselves and screaming, and just like all day long trying to get their God to light this altar on fire, and nothing happened. It said literally blood was pouring out of their bodies, and it was the prophet Elijah that was putting the challenge to them. And if that didn't work before, they wouldn't have done it. That's the real moral of the story. And on that end of the equation. But so Elijah just walked up the altar, and before he could even put much effort out, he poured water all over it. There's a drought in the land, poured water on it anyway, which is precious, pretty cocky. Did what he was supposed to do, like what he knew to do. And God just it says that fire came down from heaven, burned up the water, the rocks, and the ground around this altar. And of course, everyone was like, fear God on him, and they're like, all right, your God's the real God. But that's the Baal that God was talking about when I was wailing on the floor. God was like, am I Baal? And I'm like, no. And he's like, you don't need to do that. Stop crying out for yourself like that. I already heard you. And so then I just had this complete, it sounded brutal, but it was like this complete release from the burden of having to perform and cry out and shriek out to God to help me, because God's like, you think I'm that kind of God? And it's like, I'm not. It's like, you don't have, I already see what's going on in your life. Just trust me. You don't have to do that. And because I think that people that do that don't really understand who God is. They don't really understand how much God actually loves us. And Jesus is the only God that sacrificed for us. In the whole Bible, all the other gods required sacrifice from the people. Jesus sacrificed himself for us. So you wouldn't have to sacrifice. And so the idea that we have to go and squeeze blood out of turnips in prayer to get God to pay attention to us is completely antichrist teaching. And so I just wanted to give that to you guys, to release you guys into this freedom of however you approach God, even if you don't have all the answers and you don't really understand Jesus, but every time you turn your eyes toward God, or source or creator, or however you want to approach God, the idea that God is for you. He created you to succeed, and then created the universe to help you succeed, wants you to succeed. Everything wants you to succeed. The Bible itself says that all of the created world waits for you to get it. And they're there to help you. They're groaning for you to figure out who you are. And so that's pretty big medicine. And God's just better than that. I remember another story. I was really adamant about praying every day for a while. I just felt like I needed to do that and do the time and all the stuff I knew how to do, and all the stuff I was taught early on, way back in the day in my Christian walk. And it's I knew these steps that I was taught to do to get God's attention, right? And so I would spend an hour and every day praying, and but I enjoyed it actually, because at that point in my life I was having this little 2-week, it was for 2 years I'd have these crazy encounters, and I just couldn't wait to set aside time to devote just to interacting with God, And one day I was praying, and I just had this feeling that God was not hearing me. It was I was hitting a brick wall, or no prayers were going up. Something was happening. God wasn't paying attention. I did not feel God at all. And I just was I just thought oh, God just doesn't see me. He's not looking at me today. He's not paying attention. And And I wasn't bummed about it at all. I wasn't even like, I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, it makes sense to me. Like God's doing other stuff.
He's busy.
You know? He's busy. Like he's a person where he's not in everything, sees everything, and knows everything, right? And I'm like, that's cool. I just stopped praying and walked out of the room. And so literally next day was Sunday. I went to the church I was going to at the time. And the only person that I trusted who actually heard God as like a prophetic voice walked up to me as soon as I walked in the room and say, hey, God sees and hears you. And it was like, God's like, I actually saw and hear you. You know, it was like, I don't turn away. I always see you. And so that gave me so much confidence when I pray or when I talk to God, that God just always sees me. And so when I pray, it gave me this release to like not have to do a little song and dance and put up a spotlight and like all the things. And I had to have like, you know, in church, you have to have like a worship set and like churn all this stuff up and like hype yourself up. And maybe the presence of God will come in and they'll say like, oh, does everyone feel the presence of the Lord right now? And it's like, that happens sometimes, but God's always there. You can't actually get far away from God because you're in God and God's in you. And so it just releases you from performance. And it's such a burden to take off your shoulders that you can just talk to God 24/7. And the idea is that you don't have to perform for God and also for other people, because back in that culture, you kind of had to prove your righteousness by like doing stuff in front of people. That was kind of the law. You kind of had to do stuff in front of people to prove you were righteous. You had to follow all of these rules. So people knew if you kept all those rules in public, you were righteous. And like the Pharisees were watching people like hawks. When you broke one of those laws, they would come up to you and be like, hey, you can't carry that on this day. It's working, you know, just stupid things like that. And so Jesus was saying, screw all that. You don't need to perform any acts of righteousness in front of people. That's irrelevant to what God desires. And so it's really powerful stuff. God's just that good. And so then I want to talk a little bit about then why do we worship God? You know, it's like, why do we have to take this time to worship God? And worship is really weird for some people. The idea of like they have to worship out of this kind of, but the funny thing is like, we worship people all the time. Like any celebrity you follow, anybody you super admire, and you look at someone like, I want to be like that. You're actually worshiping an attribute of God, like something that God designed into them. But that's a kind of a worship. It's like an intense admiration for somebody. And it's not out of obligation. You just see them and you're like, that's amazing. It's kind of a minor form of worship. Like that's the kind of worship God desires. He wants you to see him. So when you turn your mind toward God, you're like, I just love and admire you so much that I just can't help but just like worship you. And it's not like this performance you have to put on to prove that you're worshiping God. People think it looks a certain way, like you have to do music, you know, and sit down, stand up, and this is the time we worship God, and now we sit down and we're not worshiping God anymore. And then we hear a message and then we leave a church. And the rest of it is nothing. But this is the time you worship. And so like when you're singing this music, right? And that's obligation. That turns into obligation. And like relationship out of obligation is people. Does Donna know she's interrupting her stream?
I'm sure not.
That's funny. So you know, anybody can tell you that like relationship out of obligation sucks. Like if you're married to somebody and they're staying with you out of obligation, that sucks. It's like the lowest form of relationship, if you ask me. God doesn't want that. And it's like he doesn't want you to approach him that way. You know, it says that the beginning of all wisdom, or fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom. It's just the beginning. It's like realizing God is God and you're not. And you're a finite created being. You didn't put yourself into motion. It's like, that's a healthy fear. You know, it's not like fear of being destroyed. It's a baseline understanding of the laws of everything. You know what I mean? And so, but it's what we worship out of admiration, not obligation. And so the concept of worship is weird to people who are like, I don't know, worship something. That's very strange. Like come and like, oh, you know, like whatever it looks like to worship. But we worship God all the time. And I always tell people like, when you're out enjoying life, like when you see somebody that is just like you're in awe of or you admire, when you see something in the natural world, you just think it's so beautiful. When you're in flow state, doing what you love to do, these are really good times you see something beautiful that just takes your breath away. These are really good times to just like acknowledge God. That is worship. Like, these are the things you created. This is the signature of God. This is who God is. It's like seeing the painting of an artist you really admire. I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of artists, and I collect a lot of local artists' work from Oregon, and I love to support local artists, and I love music, and I love theater. I love all this stuff. I'm a four. I love all that stuff. And
I love it too.
yeah, but when I buy, like I have a friend, Jen Fuller, just makes this beautiful glass work that is replicating like foliage, leaves, and things like that. She made some glass planes for us, but makes this beautiful work, and I'm like, I admire it so much, and by admiring that, I'm admiring her, like I'm appreciating her, right? And so, and I'm giving love to that person. It's like, I admire this so much, what you made. It is so beautiful. That is a way to worship God. Like, it's a good way to like walk right into the gate without obligation and just worship God. You don't have to be in a setting with the chairs this way, with a band, and someone tell you, now worship. And you're like, this is the worst music I've ever heard in my life. I'm having a hard time getting into this. You're like, oh, this is terrible. I don't like, worship isn't very fun. It doesn't look like that. It's admiring and acknowledging God. And with gratitude is a really good way to worship as well. Like, I practice gratitude all the time. It's one of the most powerful things. Like, sometimes it's like, I'm thankful that right now, because I've been in countries without clean air that turn your sinuses black. And I'm like, I'll just breathe the air. And I'm like, I live in Oregon where the air is really clean and it smells amazing. And I'm out riding my motorcycle the other day, and it's like, I can smell flowers when I'm riding down the road. And like, I live in a freaking garden where I can ride my motorcycle and clean air, and I can smell flowers everywhere. And all of a sudden I'm like, thank you, God. Donna, sorry, just do it again. See, I'm like, just thank God that he like gave me enough favor to live in this environment that's beautiful, But even in the environment where I'm driving down the road and I don't smell a lot of beautiful things and it turns your sinuses black, you can still find something, to be grateful for, even if it's just consciousness, It's like, even when I'm in pain, sometimes I'm like, I'd rather have consciousness with pain and feel the sensation than have no life at all. I just thank you for actually giving me life so I can like even experience any sensation at all and be conscious of it. And it's just a miracle, And so you can like really bring it down on base levels of where worship gratitude is actually worship. And so it's actually easy to worship God. And so sacrificing time, though, is good. Sometimes we need to set aside time to like pray, and because like we need to like focus here, and I have some things that I'm worried about, or I feel like God's trying to get my attention to bring me in right here. I need to like set aside some time to like pray. It's like meditation. It's like setting aside the quiet time, 15 minutes, an hour, however long it takes. I'm going to sacrifice this time to spend that time in communication. I'm going to sacrifice this time to intentionally worship. I'm going to sacrifice this time to intentionally practice gratitude. It's like the least we can do, right? But don't let anybody else tell you how you need to worship God, how you need to pray, how much that you need to perform or do any specific things to get God to hear you, because that is like specific. That is the sneaky little lie that gets into your thinking and then makes you think that you have got to perform to get God's attention. God always sees you, knows every single thing about you. And God is not Baal, the God Baal. That's a different God that requires sacrifice from you or will treat you poorly. That is actually a controlling, manipulative, narcissistic spirit. It's the same kind of spirit you see in people. That's basically worshiping that God. And so remember, that God, the performance God, demands sacrifice from you, and God sacrifices things for you, and that is unfathomable. It's like hard to wrap your mind around, but that is the story of the gospel. The baseline message through the whole Bible is God sacrificed himself for us. It's kind of a flip, and he does it in that setting almost like to show you how different, or she, however you relate to God, is to the other gods that were worshipped in the Old Testament. It's like, I am so completely different than that. You don't even know. You don't need to perform. Come to me. I know what you need. I want to talk to you anyway. Request stuff from me. Put in your order, and then trust that and Jesus said that God works everything out for the good of those who love him. And some translations say that commanded everything to orchestrate out for your good. That's pretty huge. The whole universe is working together for your good. Sometimes you just have to believe it, you know? And so that was a lot. Talking like an auctioneer. We got some.
I think we should share this really beautiful comment by Kelly.
Go ahead and read
It's
it.
really profound. So Kelly says, through my cancer journey, I was so immersed in being all right with God's will for me and my family being okay with whatever God's will is, that I never did ask to be healed until someone who was praying with me asked me, do you want to be healed? They explained that God's will is always healing, and adversity in contrast in our lives is not from God, but rather that God turns those experiences into opportunities to grow and prosper. I think I was afraid to want to be healed in case I wouldn't be. So now I actually feel myself healing and allow myself to believe in my healing and no longer prepare my family to be okay with being without me. Instead, I am so much more engaged. I don't have to sacrifice myself for God. Amen, Kelly.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
We love you so much, and you're right.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. You don't have to.
I think a lot of times people think too that since something is negative happening to them, that God's angry with them, and like they're receiving that as some kind of punishment or payment for being bad, where that's just so not God at all.
No.
You know, it is powerful though not to agree with a specific outcome. I have a really powerful story from a friend of mine. She's a very powerful prophetess who had been called in to a hospital to pray for somebody who was terminal. And so she had come back and forth for over a period of time, and she knew the man was supposed to be healed. Like, she got direct information that God wants to heal that person. And so she was like going in faith and adamant to pray for this person. And the guy died. And then she came back and asked God, like, why did the person die? You told me you wanted to heal this person. He said, because the family had already signed made preparations for his death and like signed over his organs and all these other things. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was basically a plan for him to die. So their faith was that he was going to die. And they'd already like envisioned that for his future, even though God's will was for that person to live. So it's very, very powerful to have a vision of yourself, you know, healed, like, right? Have a vision for yourself in the future as well. Have God's vision for yourself and not your fear's vision for yourself. It's really powerful. And it just takes the burden off of you no matter what happens, because, you know, God's will at least is for you to be whole.
Yeah.
You know, God is just that good. And so anyway, well, that was all really intense.
Yeah, it was pretty intense.
Well, no one saw that coming on Wolf Mountain tonight. So
I think we have our winner.
Kelly, I don't know if you saw us, but you win tonight's prize, a Hug a Wolf kit. We will be sending it to your address. It's got your name on it. You can name it if you want. Thank you, guys. That turned into more intensity than on my end
never
than
know.
I thought. But sometimes
No,
I
it's
just
gonna
got to
roll.
roll with what I feel. And I really have felt lately like I've seen it my whole life, you guys. I've been doing this a long time. There's a reason why I moved out of the culture I was in and started doing my own thing. So much performance. Performance is the word I keep hearing lately. It's turning people off. And I'm like, you know what it is? Is people think they have to perform for God's love. Where did they learn that? They didn't learn it from God. They learned it from controlling, manipulative, narcissistic spirit that says, I will withhold love for you unless you do things exactly the way I want you to do. And that I actually had that experience, and that's one of the reasons why I left with a particular person. And I was like, this is just wrong. It's not God's heart at all. and you don't have to perform. You can worship God in so many amazing ways. It doesn't have to look a certain way. Every time you see something beautiful, God knows that you're appreciating his artwork, his handiwork. And you need to look at yourself and appreciate yourself, because you're God's favorite. You're God's favorite thing. And it's easy. It's hard to get over the performance mindset, though. But once you do, it just takes this massive weight off of you to do God's work. To do the work God already did. You don't have to do it again. You don't have to sacrifice yourself, like Kelly said. That's amazing. So anyway, anything else?
Oh, I think we covered it.
All right, I'm exhausted. Well, we will probably be back next Monday. Maybe we won't. We are a little.
I think we will.
Catch us when we're here, but we probably will. So we love you guys. Have a good evening. And you have Kelly's address, so we can send her the baby wolf.
I will DM you, Kelly.
All right. Here it is. And we'll see you guys
Love you too, Caitlin.
next week. Love you guys.
Have a great week. Be well.